Simon from Painting in France, and welcome to this wonderful poppy field. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint this scene, and don't worry if you're a beginner, I'll be taking this step by step. But first of all, let's go through the equipment we'll be using. Hi, well, we've come to the studio and now I'm going to talk you through the equipment we'll be using. I like to use quite a heavy watercolour paper. This is actually 420 gram, and I tape this down, simple masking tape. I tape this down onto a piece of hardboard, and you'll prop that up on a book and your painting surface is ready to go. The next I'll be using just a simple 2B pencil. This will be using for the sketch. Once we've got the sketch done, then I'll be moving over to the colours. Brushes, I suggest a nice range of brushes, small to large, that's got it all covered. I like to use an open palette with separate wells for mixing the colours. Here I've used the tubed paint, so I'll just squeeze a range of colours into the wells there. We'll be using these. Of course, you can use a small painting box, why not? I like to use 2 water containers, simple jam jars with some fresh water. You can rinse your brush out in this one, that gets rid of the colour, and then fresh water to the palette from there. So change the water regularly, it just keeps the colours nice and fresh. The paper, it's always good to have a little bit of scrap paper so you can try the colours out before you put it onto your painting. So I think we're at a point where we can get started. Okay, let's get started with the pencil drawing. I've printed the reference photograph out. You could also have it on screen, so we can work from there straight away. Let's get going on the drawing. 2B pencil, got a little horizon line there. It's very simple, just here's some buildings. I'm just going to do that for now. There's a couple of buildings. One's got a kind of strange curved roof, so I'm just going to literally do that. Few trees. At this stage you can keep it very simple. I'm just indicating some trees. It's best a little tip, just to have that above the horizon line, above halfway, so it just makes it a bit more interesting composition. There we go. Through a road here. So you don't really need much more than that for the background. We've got a few lines to suggest poppies. Obviously these poppies are quite small, but I think what we need to do is have a few larger ones. So it's almost, we get some quite large ones here in the big foreground. So I think we need a few larger ones in the foreground, even though the reference pictures are all quite small, and the rest we'll be able to paint in using a bright red. Just putting some blobs in there. So I think that's almost enough to get going. Let's have a look at a little tree here, hang on, I'm just going to think. Some telegraph poles. Okay, so we're ready for painting now. I just want to point you out the colours I've got here. Literally, I've got a light yellow and a dark yellow, a red with a dark red, a light green and a dark green, a light blue, dark blue, and some grey for some shadows. Right, we'll start with the sky. What I'll do is add some water to the well here, and then add some of the light blue. Get a nice mix. Make sure you've got enough mixed up to do the sky. There's nothing worse than running out of colour halfway through. And I'll just try this on a piece of paper. That's about the right colour, not too dark. And then we can add that to the board. So I've got a nice big brush full of paint, board's at a slight angle. I'm just going to run that in, just wash that across the sky. Nice big brush strokes. Try not to do this kind of thing. Just run it across, a bit more colour. Just flooding it down the page, gives a nice kind of summer's day sky. And then as you come down, I'm just adding a little bit of water to the mix in the palette, and that'll just fade that out. You can go over the trees because they'll be darker later on. And there we go. I'm going to add a little bit of darker blue. This is the Phthalo blue, just to give it a little more strength. So once again, mix it in. Not too strong, not too weak. Try it on the piece of paper, and then again I'm just going to go across the top of the page. See, that gives a nice intensity to the sky, and then that'll fade down. And what I'll do, I'll wipe some clouds in with a clean damp brush. Wash the brush out, rinse it off, and I'm just going to drag that across the page. That gives that nice kind of high cloud on an early summer's day. That'll dry out nicely. So now let that dry. Okay, now I'm going to put a background colour in of this, actually what it is Naples yellow, which is this lighter kind of sandy colour, possibly with a little touch of this yellow ochre, just to make it a bit more earth coloured. Mix it up a nice big wellful, and we can wash that over the rest of the picture. So I'm going to put that in there. This is like the ground colour. We'll be painting on top of that. You can even paint the little buildings as well, but only once the sky has dried. There we go. We'll be painting on top of this with the greens next. I'm going to add a little bit more of the yellow ochre, the kind of warmer yellow colour, just to bring a little bit of variation in. But we can paint over all the poppies down to the bottom. This can be quite a big brush and quite loose. There we go, and now we'll let that dry. Right, now this is dry, we're going to put some very light green in. With watercolour you'll find you want some sap green, or very light green, not too thick, and we'll wash this over all the kind of greeny areas. With watercolour you tend to use lighter colours first, getting stronger as the picture goes on. So as you can see, this is just a very pale green. I'm just with a big brush again, just literally loosely putting in some trees and grass. We can come back to that later on. And just a nice sweep across here. We've got some red. You don't want this green too strong because we want the flowers, the poppies, to stand out on top. So I'm just going to leave a little gap, and quite big brush strokes. You see how the brush is just sweeping across the page. It just adds a little bit more. That's fine, that's great. Slowly taking shape. Lighter colours first, darker, stronger colours later on. There we go. I'll let that dry. Right, now for slightly darker green, I'm just going to intensify that light green we were using and add that to the trees. Got a nice line running along here. And just add a little bit of shadow in here and there. Also here. We've got the sun coming from the left hand side, so I'm just making it a little bit darker on the right hand side. There we are. And there's a nice line there, so try and keep that line running down to there and there, and that's going to be okay. Okay, so now I'm going to add just a few stronger sections of green. This can be the vines there. We've got a nice bit of green here as well. I'm going to put a big swoosh of green across there. And then it's all this area down the foreground. We can literally just, with that sort of lightish green colour, start putting, see, I'm just sort of flicking that up, and as you go back, slightly shorter strokes, just to hint at the stalks and the grass. now this is dried, I'm going to put some darker green shadows in those hills, the trees in the background here. You may have noticed I'm using a slightly smaller brush now. This is actually a size 10 for the technically minded, but basically just a medium-sized brush. And once again, we've got that lovely sharp edge on the other side of the vineyard. So I'm just putting a little hint of some darker tones in here. Likewise on the edge of the building. Put that in there. So we're slowly building up the different green layers and blending that in. Got a nice kind of point on the brush, so we get that hint. We're just on a hint at the edge of the vineyard over there. And now I'm going to just soften the brush, clean the brush and just soften that in a little bit. So I've cleaned the brush out. I'm just, see how I've just kind of softened that in a little bit. Here and there, just sort of blend the greens. It doesn't need to be very accurately done. You just want to hint at some light and shade. There we go. So now we've got some dark green in the shadows in the trees, and some nice edges to show the vines against the trees. And now I'm going to put some of the dark green into this grass down the foreground. Not all over, just sort of breaking it up like this. And we can put our poppies on top of this. Right, so now we can do the buildings. This is all taking shape. I'm going to use a yellow ochre, like a sort of browny yellow colour for the walls, and then we'll do the roofs. So literally putting that straight on there, that's right. That's fine. I'll let that dry and then I'll put the kind of slightly reddish colour for the tiled roofs. Right, that's dry. Let's put some roofs in. This kind of slightly warmer burnt yellow colour, it's like a warm brown colour. Perfect for terracotta tiles. Maybe I'm just going to put that in there, like that. We'll add some shadows a bit later on, and I'll do that one there. Try and leave a little gap between the roofs. Here we are. Great. Okay, now it's time to start putting some poppies in. I'm going to start with this kind of wave of poppies in the distance, which we can do like this, all being well. I've got some of this strong red colour, and what I'm going to do is just with a damp brush, I'm just going to sweep it across. And as the brush dries, you see, it will just give a little bit of texture like that. So practice that on a bit of paper, and then I'm going to try that. Just take a deep breath and put some colour on here. So a nice sort of stroke like that across the page. And like I said, practice first, because that'll do. It's almost, that's enough. Okay, now this is all dry, we'll start putting the poppies in. The important thing is to take your bright red and have it really nice and thick, because we're going to paint this on literally on top of all the other colours. If it's too watery, the other colours will shine through. So let's have a look. I'm going to literally start this kind of loose shape. Let's start with some big ones down the front. Do you see how it's quite thick paint, almost opaque now. And I'm just putting this in just to get the overall shape. It can be quite random. In fact, don't make it too regular. And keep filling your brush up. And then as you move further back, we'll have smaller poppies. Once again, the thing is to keep it random. We haven't got to put all the poppies in, obviously there's thousands and thousands, but we just need to give that illusion. So like I said, some bigger ones in the foreground, medium ones in the middle, and then it gets smaller and smaller. Yeah, just slowly start putting these in, not too big, in the middle. Right, now we're using a thinner brush. I'm going to mix up some thin grey colour, watery grey colour, and add some shadow to the buildings. So we'll have a little bit, let's just try that. I think that should be okay. Let's try that. And a little bit on that one. I shall take that all the way down. There we are. So not too strong, just enough to give it a bit of extra shape. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to mix up a slightly stronger dark grey colour and just add some little spots into the bigger poppies here in the foreground. There we go. You could always add a little bit of dark red if you like, but this is quite fresh and simple. There we are. Obviously a bit smaller the further you go away. Okay, we've got some poppies in there looking nice, a little bit of shadow on the buildings, and now I'm going to add just a hint of some white flowers with an opaque white colour. Once again, we need this quite thick, and we're just going to put a few little shapes in here and there. This has got to be quite thick to cover the grass below, otherwise it all shines through. So I'm just putting a few little petals in. Quite random. I'm going to put a little blob of yellow in there later on as well. Okay, you can add some white in here and there, maybe even in the background. Okay, good. So while those are drying, I'm going to use the same nice creamy mixture of white, a really fine brush now, and just put a few of these little telegraph poles in. Just carefully draw those in. That one here. So authentic, it flies a little bit. Right, this is all dry again now. I'm just going to put a little light yellow inside those flowers just to give them a little more character. There we go. Nice, I think we'll leave it at that. So now the painting's finished, I think what we can do, we can show you how this will look. This is a nice point about putting the tape around the picture, get like a little frame around the finished album. There we are. The grand reveal. There we go. Nice. I think that's worked out well. So here we are, the finished painting. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it inspirational. Bye for now.